Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. BC gets tough on shady evictions.
We want to make sure that people have stability in their lives and in their housing situation.
We believe that this portal is a very positive first step.
The province launches new measures to stop landlords from bad faith evictions. Plus, newcomers to BC are leaving BC.
Very hard to afford in BC, yeah.
Employer, it's very hard.
A very stark situation.
40% of recent immigrants are considering leaving the province, even the country, due to affordability. Also, restoring old streams for new use.
What we're doing here is daylighting a creek. 100 years ago, this would have been a salmon-bearing creek.
We take you to one of Vancouver's green infrastructure projects meant to clean the city's runoff.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. It is another attempt to track and stop shady landlords. The BC government is launching an online portal now that it says will prevent bad faith evictions. And while many say it's one useful tool to prevent homelessness and displacement, some are pushing the province to go a step further to protect vulnerable tenants. Katie DeRosa has our top story.
Housing advocates with First United Church say they're flooded with cases of tenants who paid their rent on time but are being evicted to make room for the landlord or their family members. They and the province say that too often, landlords are evicting tenants under false pretenses and then jacking up the rent for new tenants. Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon says a new mandatory web portal for landlords that will launch later this month will help the government track and prevent bad faith evictions.
Landlords benefit. They get documentation delivered in a standardized way. Tenants benefit. They're able to access information about who's moving in, and the provincial government gets to access how often this tool is actually being used and what happens to people from that.
The new rules passed by the NDP government in the spring restrict when landlords can evict a tenant for personal use of the unit. Now, if a landlord serves a personal use eviction, they or their family members have to live in the unit for at least 12 months, up from 6 months. When the website goes live July 18th, tenants will have 30 days to dispute an eviction, up from 15 days. The hope is that this will prevent landlords from using short-term family residency as a loophole to increase their rents in the unit. Amanda Burrows of First United said this practice is widespread. In a survey of 1,000 people who were evicted last year, they said 60% were asked to move out for personal use reasons.
Such a common means of eviction. Of those 60% of people saying there was landlord use evictions, how many then are of bad faith? We don't know yet. And that is why we were advocating for the BC government to create a portal such as what they're launching.
A spokesman for Landlord BC says the portal will help ensure smaller mom and pop landlords know the rules if they need to take back their property for personal use.
So the introduction of this new portal essentially means that landlords who are doing this will be well informed as to when it is appropriate to give this notice.
The government has also completely banned personal use evictions in purpose-built rentals with 5 or more units. First United said the online portal is a positive first step, but they would have liked to see the government require landlords to get permission from the residential tenancy branch before they serve the personal use eviction, similar to what's required when a landlord evicts a tenant for a renovation. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
With temperatures expected to soar across BC in the coming days, more British Columbians are taking advantage of government rebates for heat pumps and air conditioning units. The province says it's now expanding that program.
This means that some eligible households will be able to qualify now for a heat pump at no cost, and that people with middle incomes are able to access these rebates and get the supports that they need to install heat pumps in their homes.
The expanded rebate program will cover up to $16,000 of the cost of a heat pump, which heats your home in the winter and cools it in the summer. That's up from the previous rebate of $9,500, which left many out of pocket for the remaining cost. Also, new homeowners no longer have to pay up front to have the work done and wait to be reimbursed later. Instead, the government will give the rebate directly to the installation company. The number of homes sold in the Lower Mainland last month tumbled 19% compared to the same time last year. Experts say it comes as inventory continues building to levels not seen since 2019. According to the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board, there were roughly 2,400 home sales in the region in June. That's almost 24% below the 10-year seasonal average for June. Meanwhile, the number of homes listed for sale soared 42% year over year, topping a total of 14,000 listings. 1 in 3 newcomers to Vancouver are considering leaving BC due to the high cost of housing. That's the upshot of a new survey that finds renters countrywide are feeling squeezed out, but especially those who've recently arrived and especially those in parts of BC. As Pinky Wong tells us, many are prepared to move out of province, some even out of Canada, in search of a more affordable place to live.
It's very hard to afford in BC, yeah.
It's very hard.
Is the cost of living high, you think?
Yeah, it's a high.
The high cost of housing has many newcomers reconsidering where they'll live. In fact, a new survey reveals just how many people are prepared to leave BC.
A very stark situation with 2 in 5 or 40% of people who have emigrated to the country in the last 10 years saying they are thinking about either leaving their province or leaving the country overall due to the high cost of living.
In its poll, Angus Reid found this especially true for young people who are new to the country. This student is one of them.
So it's hard for us, yeah. And students are not even able to work 40 hours because of the rules of government.
1/3 of British Columbians surveyed say they're thinking about relocating to Alberta to find cheaper housing.
I'm very struggling right now as a minimum wage employer. I've been here about 6 years and I've done study, I found a job, but still I have my degrees, but I couldn't really find a good place that is affordable for me. I can say 90% of my income just goes for rent.
Among those who are considering leaving, more than a quarter are looking at moving abroad. Advocacy group says the situation is even worse for refugees coming to Canada.
The housing market in BC really is not adequate for the newcomers that are coming to the country, and it is already inadequate. And then if there is anything that we can find, it is not affordable. So we have families who arrive with less than $500 on them.
Last year, nearly 38,000 British Columbians left BC for Alberta. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
To the interior, where one person has been killed in a helicopter crash south of Invermere. Police say a ranch owner piloted the privately owned helicopter and had 2 passengers on board. Search and rescue crews were dispatched to the area and discovered the chopper. The pilot died in the crash, but both passengers managed to survive and were taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Columbia Valley RCMP are investigating the crash, and the BC Coroner Service, as well as the Transportation Safety Board, are now also involved in that investigation. A Vancouver pharmacist has been suspended and his pharmacy shut down indefinitely, all over allegations of misusing drugs. BC's College of Pharmacists says his continued practice, quote, poses significant risk to patients and the public. And as Yasmin Ranea is finding out, it's not the first time this pharmacist has been investigated.
I'm here at the Health Hub Pharmacy, which has been ordered to close its doors. It can't operate, and its manager, Sukhpreet Singh Sidhu, can no longer practice in the province as the College of Pharmacists of BC conducts an investigation. The regulatory body alleges a slew of non-compliance at the pharmacy, including inappropriate narcotic drug dispensing, improperly preparing narcotic prescriptions, and people not registered with the regulator delivering and administering drugs that treat opioid addiction. It also says Vancouver police found evidence of criminal activities in the pharmacy's delivery vehicle. Police tell CBC News a man who claimed to be doing deliveries for the pharmacy was engaging in a so-called dial-a-doping operation on the downtown east side this winter, where people call a cell phone number to arrange to buy drugs and get them delivered to a specific location. Police say he was seen with a variety of prescription medications, cash, and weapons, but there wasn't enough evidence to lay charges. It's important to note that the allegations against Sidhu and his pharmacy have not been proven, but the College of Pharmacists believes the allegations are extremely serious, that he had to be suspended while it investigates. Sidhu was previously investigated for similar concerns in 2020. The College of Pharmacists says after that probe, Sidhu said he would operate the pharmacy in compliance with legislation. It's unclear how long this investigation will take. In a statement sent to CBC, Sidhu says he's working with the college to address their concerns, respects the investigative process, and fully intends to resolve all issues. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Science World is getting a $19 million funding boost from the federal government to pay for critical upgrades. This is in addition to the $20 million already forked over by the BC government ahead of Science World's 40th anniversary. Over the decades, the geodesic dome, one of the province's most iconic structures, has gone through considerable wear and tear. So this newest cash injection from Ottawa will go towards fixing the dome. On Vancouver Island, the University of Victoria says it's had to make the difficult decision to close a campus fixture of more than 50 years. UVic says the McKinnon Pool, the university's only pool, has reached the end of its life. School officials say it's simply too costly to maintain, and upgrading it would come with a $1.5 million price tag. They say all of the varsity swimmers, student clubs, and competitive programs that use the pool will now be moved to municipal pools across the region instead. It's left some students upset, pointing out they recently lost access to the McKinnon gym as well.
In the last 6 months, UVic has actually closed 2 of their only free spaces for students to access that they gain through paying a mandatory athletics and recreation fee. And we don't stand for this fee to continue to be increasing while UVic somehow is justifying reducing the amount of services that are available to students on campus.
UVic says the pool will be closed by September 15th at the latest. Rescuers are searching for an entangled humpback whale in the waters off Vancouver Island.
We're really concerned that this is going to be a difficult one to put a working line on, but we're going to give it our best effort for sure.
The 3-year-old whale, known as Vector, was spotted Friday near Campbell River with rope wrapped around its dorsal fin and body. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans is worried the fishing gear could kill the young calf, and experts are actively searching the area using boats and drones. Anyone who spots a Vector is asked to call officials. The Vancouver Park Board has unveiled a small segment of a restored historical stream. Originally known as First Creek, it will flow through Volunteer and Tatlow parks on the city's west side. As Rob Easton explains, it's one of many green infrastructure projects meant to clean the city's runoff.
I'm here in Tatlow and Volunteer Park, where you can see right beside me here, there is an empty stream bed. Now, this is a new piece of infrastructure that's meant to replace a storm sewer pipe that flows underground over there. And what's going to happen is stormwater is going to flow through here as a new piece of green infrastructure through the park, and it's going to create a whole new amenity for the people in the neighborhood here. It's one of a number of historic creeks that the city is bringing from underground into daylight. So I'm here with Ian Stewart, who's the Associate Director of Park Development with the City of Vancouver. So tell me a little bit about what this project is. You know, we're standing in front of a stream. There's not a lot of water in it right now, but what's happening here?
Absolutely. So what we're doing here is daylighting a creek. 100 years ago, this would have been a salmon-bearing creek, and this project is one of several daylighting projects in the city. We're basically taking this out of a pipe and allowing natural processes to reoccur here. Water comes into the park a little bit up that way. It's cleaned in a civil structure, and then it enters the park. There's a lot of rock beds here and log weirs. They slow the water and they allow sedimentation to happen. The planting is natural planting.
Is there going to be fish?
There will not be fish in this creek. It's just a little bit too steep coming up from the water, and the flow isn't quite such that we can support fish here. It might be too warm.
And how exactly does it clean water?
So it cleans water. There's what's called a storm scepter. That's where the water enters the park. So you have water coming off the roads from the gutters. There's various heavy metals and chemicals and sands and sediments in that. That feature cleans that out first, and the sediments and rocks and planting will help to filter out some of those impurities. One of the best parts is that we're cleaning water, but we're also reconnecting people to the shoreline here. So we've got an accessible pathway that allows parents with strollers or those using a wheelchair with mobility challenges can get down to the water easily. We're reconnecting to the beach. We've done what's a naturalized shoreline, so instead of a wall there to protect against wave action, we've got boulders and grasses and species that would have been natural from historic times in this area.
And with that, Darius Madavi joins us. And Darius, it sure looks like summer, feels like summer. Sounds like we certainly are climbing well into summer this week.
Oh, yes, we are. Nothing but blue skies. It's finally here. Everybody asked for it, and it's here. But you all asked for it, and now I have to do this and talk about fire danger once again. Enjoy the look of the blue and green on this map, because it's probably not going to be here for long. So far this season, we've been enjoying plenty of low and very low fire danger across especially the south, but that seems to be changing already. You can see up and down the coast already hopping up to moderate fire danger, especially here on the island, moderate to high fire danger in just a few isolated places, but that's going to continue to build pretty much all through this week. I know our drought levels have come down across parts of the south, but we're definitely not out of the woods in terms of what we're going to continue to see. Fire danger can easily hop back up. We're still not completely out of drought situations in the south. We've just improved, and so our baseline is still quite high. Now, in terms of what we're going to be looking at over the next few days, not too much weather story happening because we do have just really the sunshine, but in parts of the interior, that means convection, and that means convective storms are a real possibility. We're already seeing plenty of thunderstorm activity in a few places. This isn't necessarily entirely convective, but we do have a severe thunderstorm watch up here in Fort Nelson. We're going to continue to see these convective storms form throughout at least in a few places in the province, at least through this week. And they're going to become more and more dangerous as we continue to see that warming and that drying through this week. So we're going to be on the lookout for that because, again, no precipitation on the way, Tanya. Not really even a drop.
Yeah, interesting seeing that. That's a difference for sure. Thanks, Darius. We'll chat with you after the break.
Thank you.
And up next, it is allergy season, yes. And it turns out trees might be playing a big part in your sniffling woes. Why a preference for certain trees might be making those seasonal miseries even worse. We'll explain after the break. Well, Vancouver is loved for its green spaces and tree-lined neighborhoods, yes, but you might not realize those beautiful trees are much more likely to be male. And it turns out that fact can make your allergies much worse. Our Darius Madavi is here to break down and explain all of this. So first of all, Darius, how does the city's choice of tree affect people's allergies?
Well, to answer that, Tanya, we have to briefly revisit high school biology. Basically, an individual tree can have male parts, female parts, or both. If a single tree has both, we call the species monoecious. This means that every tree can produce both pollen and fruit. This includes many of the most common trees found in Vancouver, like oaks, flowering cherries, and some maples. If a single tree only has either male or female parts, it's dioecious. In urban areas, this might commonly include mulberry trees, ginkgo, or holly trees. I could talk about this for hours, but the important thing is this: only the male parts produce pollen, which is one of the most common allergens. And yet studies have shown that cities, including Vancouver, prefer to plant male over female trees, sometimes overwhelmingly. Why? Well, according to experts, the reason isn't botanical, it's about logistics.
I don't think that there's any concerns among urban foresters about the quality of female trees. It's just that they don't have the resources to go around cleaning up fruits and nuts.
So very practical applications there, sounds like. Now, scientists have warned that climate change is expected to lengthen allergy season. How does that factor in here?
You're right. Climate change is actually really important to this conversation. Not only do some plants, like ragweed for instance, produce more pollen in response to warmer temperatures, but also the pollen seasons of different plants are shifting and in some cases growing.
We've been surprised by the finding of pollens earlier than what we expect. For example, ragweed, which is a fall-time allergen, was actually measurable in our environment pretty early on in the summer. So that sort of prediction of pollen seasons getting longer and longer.
Now, unfortunately, there's no cut and dry solution, but there are steps we can take to alleviate the problem.
Generally, planting a diversity of tree species will help ensure that not as much pollen is produced at any one time, because species may be producing pollen at slightly different times.
Now, don't get me wrong, trees are far from the only culprit when it comes to allergens in cities, but whether it's trees or other vegetation, not all species are created equal. For instance, some plants just use a buckshot technique. They produce a ton of pollen and let it fly free to fly straight into your nostrils, while others take a more focused approach.
The pollen from those insect-pollinated plants and trees doesn't travel as far. It also cannot really, the pollen tends to be too big to actually enter our nose and in our airways.
Now, by no means are allergies the only consideration when choosing trees, but since we're talking about 100,000 of them that Vancouver, the city of Vancouver wants to plant, it's one thing they may want to keep in mind.
No doubt, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much, Darius. Still to come, a look at the final day of campaigning in the UK election and what's expected to be a historic defeat for the ruling Conservatives. That's coming up next. Welcome back. Let's talk federal politics now. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced questions about his leadership today, his first time in front of reporters since the Liberals lost a telltale by-election last week. As the CBC's Ashley Burke reports, divisions are deepening within the party's caucus over Trudeau's future.
What's your name? The Prime Minister back in his own riding, showing his constituents and cameras he's not going anywhere, despite calls to step down.
Last week's by-election loss, not to sugarcoat it, was challenging. Was something we need to take seriously.
That stunning by-election loss cost the Liberals a longtime seat in Toronto St. Paul's, caused division in caucus, and led Liberal MP Wayne Long to call for Trudeau to go. Privately, another Liberal MP told CBC News there are a number of MPs now considering if they'll run again if Trudeau stays on.
Are you willing to stay on and lose members of your caucus?
I think the conversations that I'm having with MPs directly right across the country, the conversations that we're all having as Liberals are going to continue.
But that source said every member of caucus deserves a call, not just a select few, as ministers continue to defend Trudeau publicly.
I think he is the right leader for us. He's won 3 elections. We formed government 3 times.
Others were asked if they'd run for leader if Trudeau steps down.
I have been very clear over the last few days that Justin Trudeau is the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. I support it, obviously.
Winnipeg North MP Kevin Lamoureux says he's not pressing panic and will only run again in the next election if Trudeau does.
I've made a commitment to Justin Trudeau to be a candidate in the next election. I'm committed to running as long as he is the leader.
9 Liberal MPs have signed a letter calling for an immediate caucus meeting to talk about the by-election loss. But today, Trudeau dodged questions about if he'll do that. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Flight cancellations after the recent WestJet mechanics strike may have passengers wondering about their rights. More than a year ago, the federal government proposed new rules to simplify compensation regulations. But as Sophia Harris tells us, those changes have yet to take effect.
Retired RCMP officer Norm Massey enjoyed his trip to Vancouver, attending a youth basketball tournament he co-founded. But he didn't enjoy the trip home. His flight was delayed more than 14 hours.
So what was that like to spend 14 hours in the airport?
I'll tell you, it's not pleasant at all.
Air Canada rejected his claim for compensation. In an email to Massey, Air Canada blamed unforeseen maintenance, which was within its control but required for safety-related reasons. Under current regulations, airlines must pay compensation up to $1,000 for delays within their control, unless they're safety-related.
Do you think that they're just using the safety clause to deny you compensation?
Absolutely. That's what I feel. And until they prove otherwise, that's the way I'll continue to feel.
Massey has company. The Canadian Transportation Agency has a backlog of more than 72,000 air passenger complaints, many over compensation for flight disruptions.
There will be no more loopholes.
More than a year ago, Ottawa proposed new rules to simplify the compensation process and close supposed loopholes, like the required for safety category.
It's a huge gray area that really only the carriers can take advantage of.
This consumer advocate believes the new rules should have arrived by now.
This is really becoming a very long delay, and it's very unfortunate for passengers.
There's a regulatory process. It takes a certain amount of time.
The CTA says it must consider all sides before changing the current regulations.
We are looking at how to factor in the airline input as well as the consumer advocacy input that we receive.
Airlines argue getting rid of the safety exception penalizes airlines for taking safety precautions that delay flights. Meanwhile, Ottawa has yet to announce an arrival date for when those new rules will land. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
It can be tough to handle kids' tantrums, and it's no secret a smartphone or tablet might buy parents a few moments of peace. But new research suggests when you give your kids digital devices to calm them down, it could alter how the child manages their emotions in the future. Tashana Reid has the details.
A team of researchers from Canada and Hungary surveyed 300 Canadian families in Nova Scotia with children 2 to 5 years old. The results were published in the journal Frontiers in Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. Parents reported how often they use digital devices to calm their children or to stop a tantrum. Then investigators followed up 1 year later. They found the more often parents gave their kids screens or digital devices, the more they reported higher anger and frustration in their children. The paper adds to growing research about the impacts of screen time on young kids, from language delays to attention problems.
It again drives home the point that screens used as a calming strategy becomes a vicious cycle. In the long term, it actually creates more of a problem, because then it's harder for that child to learn any new skills without the screen.
Experts say it's important for parents to teach their kids how to handle difficult situations without a screen. And not all screen time is bad, especially when the child is using the device with the parent. Things like video chats with family or virtual stories or music time can be beneficial, or on occasion, if parents just need a breather.
You're frustrated, the day has not gone well, your child is tired and hungry, and you're just buying some time for yourself to calm down, and they're using the device. You know, this is not the worst parenting decision in the world that you've ever made.
Still, experts say parents should not over-rely on screens. The Canadian Pediatric Society says it's important for parents to set strict time limits, ensure content is age-appropriate and educational, and be sure to monitor their own screen time in front of their children. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's take you across the pond now, and voters in the United Kingdom are going to the polls tomorrow, and all indicators are pointing to a major change in government. The CBC's Briar Stewart takes a look at the last day of campaigning.
It was Lewis flat 8, undecided.
Across the UK, the final push for votes.
Okay, right.
In the town of Watford, volunteers canvass for the local Labour candidate.
Tories have not been good for the United Kingdom, and that's the essence of it.
And they say that's what they hear from the voters they managed to speak with on the doorstep. This constituency is a real priority for the Labour Party because they believe there's enough support to win a seat here, which they haven't done since Tony Blair was Prime Minister. Watford is a commuter town just outside of London. It's considered a bellwether riding. Voters here usually elect whichever party ends up forming the government.
Everybody I'm talking to, it seems like they want a change.
I think I would vote for the Labour Party. I think they are more geared towards looking after working class people.
Labour leader Keir Starmer is on the brink of becoming Britain's next Prime Minister.
We are fighting for every vote.
Polls point to Labour winning a significant majority. Even some Conservatives believe their scandal-plagued party will lose big, which is why in a last-ditch effort, Boris Johnson popped up on the campaign trail, throwing his support behind Rishi Sunak, the man who helped push him out of the Prime Minister's office.
You like that, Brody?
Sunak spent his final hours on the campaign trail trying to appeal to families, but his time in power is almost certainly fleeting. The big question, observers say, is what happens next.
We in this country face really serious economic problems. If Labour don't manage to do something about that, the danger is that the next election will be an even more angry election with more and more people voting against the mainstream and looking for alternatives.
Because while Labour is poised to take over the government, it will also inherit all of the country's problems too. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
And in politics stateside, the U.S. presidential election is just 4 months away. And to his party and his country, Biden's message is clear. He's in this race to win it. But as our Paul Hunter explains, new reports are casting new doubt.
Questions now follow Joe Biden with every step. Is he unfit to be president? Too old, too feeble for the job, even now, let alone for another 4 years? At this White House ceremony, he seemed fine.
Ordinary Americans who showed extraordinary courage.
But those worries grow louder.
We are laying out and explaining exactly what happened.
For the second straight day, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre facing pointed questions on the president's mental acuity and his political future. Asked straight up, will he step down?
Absolutely not.
And on multiple reports that he's now actively considering ending his bid for re-election.
No, it is absolutely false. That's coming directly from him. The president is clear-eyed, and he is staying in the race. I don't have anything else beyond that. He's staying in the race.
President of the United States, Joe Biden.
All of it continued fallout from that debate last week with former President Donald Trump. Deemed an utter disaster for Biden, stumbling often and seeming to lose his train of thought.
Everything we have to do with
A new poll now suggesting Trump's lead on Biden among U.S. voters is widening. Biden's supporters, be they lawmakers, donors, friends, signaling worries his bid for re-election is imploding. On that, Democrat state governors met directly with the president for what they later described as an honest, candid conversation on the key question, can he do the job?
Do you think he's fit for office?
Yes, fit for office.
But meanwhile, reports Biden himself knows there's a serious problem and that the next few days are crucial for determining his future. Under pressure to prove to all he's fit for office and re-election, and to push back on the sudden and sobering concerns he is not. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Still to come, bracing for impact, Hurricane Beryl barrels past Jamaica. We'll track where the massive storm is headed next. Stay with us. Let's take you across the border now. And a growing wildfire south has forced thousands of people out of their homes in Northern California. The flames are being fueled by extremely hot and dry conditions. Helicopters and water bombers are battling the flames from the air, while more than 1,400 firefighters are working on the ground. More than 13,000 people have been told to leave their homes in Butte County alone. That's about 100 kilometers north of the state capital, Sacramento. This fire has burned about 2,000 hectares already and is 0% contained. A state of emergency has been declared. Well, Hurricane Beryl is continuing its destructive path across the Caribbean. In Jamaica, people have spent the day sheltering in place as dangerous winds and violent waves lash the island. CBC's Sasha Petrusik shows us the unfolding situation as that deadly storm roars over the island.
With winds pushing more than 200 kilometers per hour, pounding rain and surging seas, Hurricane Beryl bore down on Jamaica.
It has been very bad. I mean, very, very bad.
Hitting this eastern tip first off Nicole Shirley Phillips' porch.
It's raining. We had gusts of rain. A lot of trees are down. A lot of banana trees are going to be down.
Jamaica is used to hurricanes, but not like this. Beryl has come much earlier in the season. Its strength has grown much faster.
When we realized that this was coming for us, it was like panic, like, oh my goodness, it's been a while since we've had this happen.
The storm has already left a trail of havoc and death in the eastern Caribbean, damaging or destroying 90% of the houses on Union Island near Grenada.
To see this level of destruction, it is almost Armageddon-like, almost total damage or destruction of all buildings. Complete devastation and destruction of agriculture.
With the northern eye wall on land over southern portions of the island.
As it hit Jamaica, even meteorologists from the U.S. Hurricane Center were surprised.
So very dangerous conditions ongoing now in Jamaica, and they are going to continue for the next several hours.
Experts say Beryl's fury is fueled by warmer than normal temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean.
Our region bears the brunt of the impacts of climate change.
Indeed, many more hurricanes are expected in the Atlantic. Instead of the usual 7 per year, meteorologists say as many as 12 may follow in the coming months. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
And Darius Madave is back with us. Darius, with this hurricane, it seems we've always been asking what's next. I guess that still is the big question with Beryl.
Yes, definitely. There's still a lot more impacts on the way, even as it does move past Jamaica. And so let's just quickly recap where we've been so we can get an idea of what's going to happen in Jamaica, because as of now, communications are down for large parts of the island, and so we don't know the full extent of the damage that has been done. Right now, this is a couple days ago, remember how quickly it escalated into a Category 4 hurricane, continued moving on, and then made landfall over parts of Grenada. So let's take a look at a satellite image from a year ago in Carriacou, Grenada, just again, a year ago. So this is what it looked like. Then again, the same satellite was able to take a photo yesterday, and this is the devastation that it brought. Notice all the vegetation just completely ripped up, houses destroyed. Category 4 hurricanes are, of course, a force of nature, but they are one of the worst things that can come across a place like this. The winds are just devastating, over 200 kilometers per hour, and the damage that's done by winds really rises exponentially, with the speed of those winds. So then after that, it became a Category 5 hurricane briefly. Fortunately, did not make landfall as a Category 5 anywhere. That would have been even more devastating, and has now continued to make its way towards Jamaica, where there are still hurricane warnings all in place. And then as it made didn't quite make landfall, passed just south, so not quite landfall, but still experiencing those hurricane force winds. So this, now I've added the strength of the winds that were experienced in these areas, and you can see red hurricane force winds here. Then going to pass the Cayman Islands. Again, hurricane tropical storm force winds being experienced by some of the Caymans, and then making landfall in Mexico as a Category 2 hurricane, it looks like, before continuing on and becoming a tropical storm, then gathering strength once again to make landfall once again, either in Mexico or Texas, as a Category 1 hurricane once more. So there's still a long way to go with Beryl. There's going to be a lot more news on the way in the next few days, so be ready for that. Here in BC, it's a lot more calm. We're getting warmer, but fortunately nothing disastrous. Our highs are going to continue to climb into the end of this week, easily reaching the mid to high 30s by the end of this weekend, early next week. In the interior, here by the water, mid 20s to high 20s, but feeling at least 5 degrees warmer than that because of the humidity. Our lows, though, staying relatively low. So again, a bit of relief overnight, which is good news. We need that. And then in terms of conditions across the province, mostly just sunshine, a little bit of rain because of that convective activity, but not much to speak of. And here in Vancouver, again, watch out for the highs, watch out for the humidity, but nothing but sunshine, Tanya. It's
ramping up that heat. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, we are learning more about what makes the Netherlands a dazzling superstar in solar power. Our international climate correspondent Susan Ormiston shows us why solar is flourishing overseas and what could jeopardize it.
The height of the building, the roof edge is about 40 meters.
There's power in rooftops, lots of it.
So what's the size of this?
So the building is about 10,000 square meters.
Bart Mej with Dutch company Sunrock is showing us its potential. Right now, they're installing fittings for 1,700 solar panels on the top of an industrial building.
Nobody will see the panels, and we're still producing energy on a space which is used double. So storage in the inside, green energy on the roof. We are renting the roof from the building owner, and in the end we sell our electricity back to the grid.
Within a month, there will be a version of this, and it will produce electricity to power about 300 Dutch homes.
After a slower start, solar is rocketing in the Netherlands. If you do the math, there's more solar panels here per person than anywhere in Europe, about 2 solar panels for every person living here.
It's not hard to find them on Dutch homes or on water. The Netherlands is a small country and land is precious. What they do have is a lot of water, so they've constructed floating solar parks on lakes, more here than almost anywhere else except China. So why the solar surge here? It's cheaper. Prices for solar components have dropped as much as 50%. It's more secure after gas prices spiked in Europe over Russia's war in Ukraine. Repower EU is a plan to transition to new energy sources.
We are ready at Sunrock to support this energy transition.
Kaya Engler has 2 decades in the solar business and is now seeing its fast-paced growth.
The cost to invest in solar energy has come down a lot. However, as it's a long-term investment over 20 years, there needs to be security from the government that there is stable regulation for the years to come.
Sunrock, headquartered in Amsterdam, is a Dutch leader in rooftop solar. Even the office decor pays homage to the sun, and the company's expanding. Solar is the fastest growing sector of electricity investment worldwide. About 1 billion panels will be manufactured this year, mostly by China, and the sun is already producing 6% of the world's electrical needs. So how does Canada compare? The Netherlands, with 17 million citizens, has installed over 24 gigawatts of solar capacity, while Canada, with 41 million people, has installed over 5 gigawatts of solar capacity.
Renewables are kind of interesting. You know, it's undeniable that there obviously have become more politicized here in Canada.
Canada's abundance of hydroelectricity and oil and gas has meant less incentive to build up solar, unlike the Netherlands. But add to that political headwinds.
These things take time.
Such as Alberta's moratorium last year on new renewable projects.
I think it's fair to say that the result of the policies that are being put into place is going to have an impact to slow investment into solar.
She is optimistic that will change.
We're poised to see more of this growth happening across Canada.
But Europe is watching the politics too.
Enough of this climate madness.
With political winds shifting in the EU, there is concern governments' commitments to supercharge the renewable sector will change, and business doesn't like uncertainty.
there's obviously a risk that this progress, and there's very positive progress that has been made, might slow down, which obviously then has consequences for us as a business, but also for climate change.
Meantime, solar installations are doubling globally every 3 years.
Our company wins. I think the environment wins as well because we're placing it on a roof. I think the whole of the Netherlands wins because we are building a greener future together.
The future challenge is less, can it work? And more, how do we store so much sun power?
The CBC's Susan Ormiston reporting. One of the most active volcanoes in the world has sprung back to life. Italy's Mount Etna has started spewing smoke and lava. A new crater opened up with a lot of activity and lava flows. Now, this specific part of the mountain at about 3,000 meters had been quiet for about 4 years. Mount Etna's eruptions are usually explosive because of the chemical makeup of the magma. Still ahead, as far as chickens go, she's brilliant and truly one of a kind. How a Gabriola Island chicken named Lacey has become a record-setting brainiac. That's next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC returns as a media partner of the Surrey Fusion Festival, July 20th to the 21st. The festival features over 50 cultural pavilions that will incorporate the theme of landmarks of the world into their displays. For more information, visit surreyfusionfestival.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
Gabriel Island is home to what may very well be the world's smartest chicken.
Lacey, the hen is the newest Guinness World Record holder after identifying a whopping 6 different shapes in 60 seconds.
We caught up with her owner to find out why chicken training is so rewarding beyond setting world records.
So hopefully she will figure it out even though I've switched the side. It seemed like a fun idea, and I thought it would be nice to highlight that they're smarter, a lot smarter than people think. My name's Emily Carrington, and today we're taking a look at my chickens. They're doing a few tricks, and Lacey has officially got a Guinness World Record now. There's a lot of official steps. They required that, first of all, the chickens get certified by a vet that they're all healthy enough. Then I had to get two timers, 2 people involved in local sports who had done official timing before, and 2 witnesses, and 2 or 3 people with cameras, as well as somebody taking photographs. So once I got all of them together, I took each chicken out one at a time because they're all trained to do the same basic tricks. And I ran 2 or 3 of them that seemed to be, you know, kind of on their game that day through the different set of tricks that I'd taught them. And they missed some, they got some, and Lacey was the one who got the most. So she's the one with the official record now. Well, I'm a veterinarian as well as an artist, and I've always, ever since I was a little kid, been fascinated with how animals, all different animals, think or feel. And I can remember being, you know, a little kid, like 7 or 8 years old, and sitting out in our family chicken coop and staring at the chickens, and because I'd just read Dr. Dolittle, and trying to understand chicken language, and I realized pretty quickly nothing was gonna happen there. So the bus that I built for them to take them back and forth, people get a big kick out of it. And I'd have to say that having chickens and doing something like this is a fantastic way to meet your neighbors. I kind of joke around and say, no, I'm not going to let them drive my car, you know, but try to treat them with respect, and like listen to what they're saying, and if they're trying to tell me something, try to figure out what they're trying to tell me. And I found that really greatly increased their interactiveness with me. A lot of people have chickens as pets now, and I think, you know, they have them as pets, but they're kind of missing out on this other side. And it becomes much more rewarding way to have chickens.
Very cute. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6.
Your next local newscast is at 11 o'clock tonight, right here after the National. Good night.